Okay, today we're going to create a little game of bingo. Let's kind of show you which one we're doing. We are doing the Unit 11 no-brainer. And bingo is a game where they call out numbers and you put little beans on your card and you try and get 5 in a row. Well, we're going to create just the card and we'll have them. So here's kind of the bingo card that we'll display, and they'll have a little free spot in the middle. And then the user will enter in the number they hear called out. So it'll say 20 and they'll put their 20 and press enter, and it'll automatically keep track of all of where their beans are placed on their window. Then it'll call out 72 and they'll enter in 72 and there'll be an X right there. And then as soon as they get 5 in a row, either across or diagonal or up and down, the program will say bingo. So this is a fairly simple program of displaying random numbers on your screen, really. But it's kind of got a second level of complexity in that it's not just random numbers. This first row are only numbers 1 through 15. This second row are numbers 16 through 30, and it keeps going up by 15 until you get to the max number of 75. Now, not only that, but they're not necessarily random. You do not have any duplicate values in your bingo card. Okay, so that's what we're going to do today, and then it will have a little bit of fun kind of traversing and seeing if they've won in all the different possible ways that they could win in this. Okay, so I've downloaded this bingo GUI, and that's the code to create this window right here. If you prefer a console version, I've got this code right here for you to download, and that will do the same thing. The only difference is it will display it and they enter in their number, and it will just print the thing again, the card again. Okay, so here is that file already downloaded, and it shouldn't have any errors, but I think it does because this was left over from when I removed the code. I forgot to remove that one. But if you comment that one out, we'll put it back in eventually, but just so you can see what it looks like, you can comment that out. And you can see, oh, hey, look, there's our bingo card. I've got a big giant text field, a label, a text field, and a button. My text field here does not show anything, and my button doesn't do anything at the time, but we'll get that working. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a code for the bingo card. And even if you're doing the GUI version or if you're doing the console, this same code will work in both places. So I'm going to do a file new and create a bingo card.java. We're going to need a random number and an array list. We're going to be reviewing array lists at the same time on this one, since you know I like to do that. And this bingo card will hold all of the logic for our bingo card, and it will work in either of the two programs that you've just downloaded. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to declare a couple of instance variables. So I need some sort of thing to represent my card. Well, a card is just rows and columns, so I'm going to use my 2D array for that. And that's what these two sets of brackets mean, is there's rows and columns in this particular data structure. And this is declaring it. If you just do that, that will just declare your 2D array. I'm going to declare and instantiate it because I already know that my bingo card is going to be 5 by 5. There we go. Okay, we'll also need a random generator, and that to populate our 2D array. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is the constructor. And my constructor, what it's going to do, that's not the bracket I needed. There it is. Comment up here. What the constructor is going to do is populate the bingo card. So we're going to fill it with our random numbers. Okay, and let me just kind of show you the logic we're going to do. In order to not get duplicates, I'm going to use an array list to help me out. And I'm going to go dot, dot, dot all the way up to 15. I'm going to create an array list of all the possible numbers I can have in my bingo card. So for the first column, it's going to be all the numbers 1 through, was it 15? Now I don't remember. Let's go back and check. 1 through 15, going back. 1 through 15, yeah. So all the numbers 1 through 15 is going to be stored into my array list. We'll put in a couple numbers so I can show you this concept. Once I've got my array list populated with all of the numbers, then all I have to do is generate a random number between 0 and the size of my array list, and whatever position is in that particular spot, that's what I'll add to my bingo card, and then I'll remove it. So for example, suppose my random number was 2. 0, 1, 2. This is at position 2, so it will add the 3 to my bingo card, and then I'll remove that position from my list. So now on the next spot down in that column, it will generate a random number 1 smaller because the size is now smaller, and it will never find another 3 to put in. So that is my logic for this. So that means I need an array list. Practice using our array lists again. So this is going to be all of the possible values. So I'm going to say array list is going to be integers, since my bingo card is going to be integers. And I do want to show you something. I was just thinking about this. So on my bingo card it is integers, but you'll notice, first of all, there's going to be X's here. And then it also says bingo up here. Well, even though they're integers, we're not going to actually put the X value into our 2D array. Instead, we'll use 0 to represent where the X's are, because I won't have a 0 in my 2D array. Then when I'm going to display this, I'll just display bingo, and then I'll display my 2D array with the exception of if there's a 0, I will show an X. So yes, it's a 2D array. No, it doesn't actually have X's in the 2D array. They're just getting displayed that way if it finds a 0. So we're going to say 0 represents that someone's got their little bean on that value or something like that. Okay, so back to my list. These are the list of all the possible values. So I'm going to say array list integer pos values equals new array list. Okay, now it would be nice if we had some sort of method to do this for us. Yes, we're going to do that. Let's create a little helper method. So this bracket right here ends the constructor. This bracket right here ends the class. And so long as you're not in your class or in your constructor, we can do this. Okay, remember, whenever you do methods, you ask yourself 3 questions. What is the problem you're trying to solve? What information do you need? And what is the type of answer you're going to have? Well, what are we trying to do? We're trying to fill this array list with all the possible values that it could be for the first column of our screen. All right, so maybe we could call our method fill array. There we go. So that's question 1. What is it we're trying to do? We're trying to fill the array. Well, if we're trying to fill the array, what information do we need? Number 1, we need the array. So in parentheses, I'm going to say array list. And I can name it whatever I want here. Even though I'm sending it this array called pos values, I don't have to name it there the same thing. In this case, I'm going to, just for consistency. Okay, so what other piece of information do I need? Well, I need the array, and I need to know what to fill it with. In this case, we don't need to know all the information. We just need the start value and then count up 15 from there. So I'm going to say int start. Okay, third question. We know what we're going to do. This is the problem we're going to solve. We have the information to solve the problem. What value will get returned? Okay, this is kind of a trick question. Yes, it is the array that will get returned. So that is correct. We could, in fact, return an array list of values. And that would work, and that would be just fine. However, since an array list is already an object, do you remember, let's see, when did we do this? We did this when we were talking about the object-oriented chapter, and we showed you a bunch of methods, and we said if you're passing an int value, it sends a copy, but if you're passing an object, it actually sends that object, so if you modify that object, it will retain those changes. Yeah, an array list is an object. So we can modify it right inside this method and not have to send it back because we're actually modifying this object. So we don't even have to return anything back. We can say void on this particular one. Okay, so once we get our array list, just in case there's any, so on the first one, we don't have to worry about that because it's going to be all the values 0 through 15, and then it's going to take out 5 of those values to populate our cute little bingo card. But the next iteration, when we're trying to populate the second column, we don't want it to start adding 16, 17, 18. We want it to start right at 16 and not put any values 1, 2, 3 inside the second column. So the very first thing I'm going to do when I get this array is I'm going to clear out all of the old values that I had from the previous list by calling this clear function. This clear just deletes all of the values in the array list. Then I'm going to add all of the new values in, starting at start. So I'm just going to use a for loop that goes 15 times to do that. For int I equals, well, do we want to start at 0? Do we want to start at 1? We know what we want to start at. Let's start there. For int I equals start, semicolon. So long as I is less than, I want it to count 15 up. Now, here I have I is less than 15. And on my very first one, for start, that will work because that's counting 15 up. But what happens when we get to the second column and my start is 16? We want it to count 6 up from that start value. So because it's not just, we don't just want it to count 15, we want it to count 15 up from this, I'm going to add to my condition I is less than start plus 15. That way it starts at this value and counts up 15 higher than that value. Then I have an I plus plus. And all I have to do is add I to my possible values. There we go. Compile that, just make sure we're not getting any errors. Okay, so far so good. Okay, so this fill array is done. Let's comment it. This fills the array with all the possible values for the column. How the heck do you spell column? U-M-N? That looks kind of right. Okay, I did forget something on the beginning of this. Normally, we have public on the front of anything that's a method. Okay. Now, this is a special situation. We don't necessarily have to have this fill array called from main. So since it's not going to be used outside the class, it's never going to be used in Bingo GUI, it's only going to be used in this bingo card, I can actually say private on this one because it's just kind of an helper function for me so my constructor isn't like 20 lines long of code. Alright, so my fill array is done. That's what I want to do here is I want to fill the array, but I want to fill it as I am going through my bingo card. So here I'm going to start my first column, and I do want to do the column because I want the first column, if you remember from our cute little picture, we're going to iterate through our array this way, up and down, up top to bottom, instead of left to right. That way we can enter in all of these values first, and then enter in all of these values next. So I am going to be going up and down, backwards from what I normally do. Okay, so I'm going to iterate through and I'm going to populate every value with something from this possible values. So to start, I'm going to say for int c equals 0, c is less than, okay, our bingo card is called card. How do I know the size, the length, excuse me, of the number of columns? Remember? Okay, for columns, normally it's dot length, but that's rows. If I want the number of columns, I have to put in my square bracket here and specify that I want the length of column 0, which is the same length as column 1, column 2, and column 3, so it works. Then I'm going to do a C++. Now you know where the language C++ came from. For int r equals 0, r is less than, do you remember how to do the number of rows? Card.length, this time it doesn't have the little brackets. R++. Alright, so this will iterate through my 2D array of for loop inside of a for loop. In this case, it goes up and up to down, up and down, instead of side to side, from left to right. Okay, now before this, so this right here is where I want to fill each column. It's gonna, well, no, not necessarily. This will fill each row, but what am I saying? I'm not sure what I'm saying. Let me go on. Okay, before I go through and iterate down each row, that's what this is doing. This is going down the row because of the for loop there that's iterating through the row. I want to populate my array list and pull values from there. So I need what I want the list to start at. So I'm going to say int start equals 1, starting at 1. Now inside this, the two loops, before I start iterating down the column, using down the road, going down the column is iterating the row, right? Or is it iterating the column? I don't know, but by changing R, it's going down the column. It's making it confused for me because it's using R, but it's iterating the column. Okay, so I want to call my method that I just created, fill array. So I'm going to say fill array, and I want to fill it with my possible values, and I'm going to give it start, which is currently 1. Then, as I come in here, I'm going to get a random number, so int. This random number is going to represent the position in this list of the value I'm going to grab out. So int, how about POS for position? And I called my generator gen dot next int, and it's going from 0 to the size of the list. The size of my list is pos values dot size, and I'm not going to put +1 because I want it from 0 to that size. So this represents the position in the list that I'm going to grab. Now that I have that position, I'm going to set my card of our particular row of that particular column equal to my my list pos values dot get at position POS. There we go. Sorry, I had a brain fart there for a second. Okay, so now that I've added this to my list, I want to remove that position from my list so I don't get it again. So I'm going to say pos values dot remove POS. And what did I hit? I hit 2 dots. Sorry about that. So now it's removed from the list. So this is iterating and filling the column full of all of their values. As soon as it gets to the end of the column, I want to do it again, but my start is going to get incremented by 15. There we go. Okay, so that way it's ready, and when it comes here for the second time, it'll empty out the list, start the values at 15 plus 1, which is 16, and then it will populate the entire list with unique values. Okay, very last thing. So this one ends the inner loop. This particular one ends the outer loop. And before I do anything else, to finish off my constructor, I want to set my free space. Because remember, in a bingo card, the middle is always the free space. Okay, remember we said we were going to use the value 0 to represent places that are already filled. So I'm going to set it equal to 0. Okay, try and guess. Try and do this part on your own. What numbers would I put in these square brackets to give me the very center value? Pause the video if you need, because I'm going to give you the answer right now. Okay, so if our card is 5 by 5, 0, 1, 2 would be right in the middle. So I'm going to say 2, 2. That will give me my free space. All right, so let's do, what should we do next? Let's make it so we can see these values on the screen. Okay, so that's my constructor. This is my fill array. Here's where my class ends. I'm going to do my toString method next. So it's before the end class. And this will just display, use to display the card values. Okay, this time I want to iterate through my card, but I want to go rows, columns. All right, so let's do a couple of things first. We're going to have a string be what we're going to display in what we're going to return. We're just going to keep adding all the things that we want to this str and then return that, and that will be our display. So since that's what we're returning, I'm going to press enter a couple of times, and automatically I'm going to say return str. That way I know that this is what I'm displaying. Okay, the very first thing I want, well actually I'm not going to do the first, it's going to say bingo up at the top, but just so you can get the idea of this logic, let's iterate and put all the numbers in first. So I want to iterate through my 2D array, but I want to go across this time, not up and down. So I'm going to start with rows. Okay, card.length, remember that's the number of rows. Card open square brackets dot length is the number of columns. C is less than card of 0 dot length. That's columns. Okay, there we go. There's my basic logic. I do want a little if statement in here that says if my card at that position, I got to do rows first, is greater than 0, that means I just want to display what the value is. So I'll say str plus equals card of that row of that column. And then I'm going to add, I'm not sure if we've done this yet, but we'll show you anyway. I could add a space. That just does a space. There's a kind of cool feature. You could do a /t, and that's a tab. So it'll automatically put a tab in for you. Okay, my else, though, to this if statement is going to be very similar, str plus equals, but instead I want to put an X. And then I'll put, once again, my /t for the tab. Okay, So this will display either the number or an X if it's a 0. As soon as I end the row, if I've iterated all the way across the column, so that would put my code, this is the end for the else. This right here is the end inner loop. This bracket right here is the end outer loop. Between those, right here, between the end inner loop and the end outer loop, that's where I want to end the line. So that way the next column, the next row, goes on the next line of the display. So here I'll say str plus equals a /n. There we go. Okay, now the other thing I wanted it to do is I want it to say this right here. I want it to say bingo. So to start off, let's put that in, but I want the tabs in there too. I want to say B and then a tab and then an I and then a tab and then NGO. Okay, so we're going to put that in right here. We're going to start our string out with that. So I want BINGO, obviously. I do want an end line in there. But between each of those characters, I want a tab. So I'm going to do /t there, /t there, /t, /t. Okay, so that'll put a B and then a tab. And it knows this is an escape character, this slash. So it knows to put in a tab in this spot, even though it's within my string. Okay, I think that will work. So far, so good. All right, what should we do next? Do we have anything more we have to do? We do have to see who wins. And we have to be able to move to search through and iterate. I think I'm going to get this so it displays, and then we'll stop the video and finish this off in another video. That way it doesn't crash on me or something like that. So let's go to your Bingo GUI right here. And we're going to go up to the very top and declare an instance of our bingo card. So I'm going to say private bingo card. I'm just going to call it game equals new bingo card. Okay, then I'm going to bring back in this comment, and all this does is sets the text with my toString method. So theoretically, we should now have a working bingo card. Well, at least a displaying bingo card. There it is, voila! And each time you run it, you should get different values. I didn't see what values were there. But you like our little BINGO with the tabs in between? I like that. I like the way I did it here on the video rather than the website. So don't look at the one on the website. It's really clunky and confusing. Very nice. Okay, catch me in the next video and we'll get it so the user can enter in their value and it will show if they win or not.